Okay, we're gonna paint our Grinch Countdown Christmas calendar. I'm really excited about this one. As far as colors go, there are so many greens for the Grinch, so I'm going to paint a brighter green. I just like that more. You can choose a darker green if you want it to look more like the movie, or I even have like a pea green, so it's kind of like the original. So you can make that request when you place your order. Let's get started. I'm gonna tilt you down. Okay, so the first thing you wanna do is open up your box or have some old paper. I obviously just reuse this paper over and over. And then what I've done is I have separated my pieces out by color. So obviously I'm gonna paint my background white, and then there are these two little pieces, his little cuff link, or the fur around his wrists, that are also going to be white. And then I have my black piece up here, the red pieces, and the green over on the side. So the first thing we're going to do is paint the background, just because that's going to take a lot longer to dry. And I'm going to do 2 to 3 coats. So get your white paint, your foam brush, dip it in, and I start in the middle just so that I don't have paint dripping all down the sides. I start in the middle and I angle it up like this, just to prevent as much on the sides as I can. If you watched any of my other videos, you'll know that I'll say over and over, it's totally fine if you get paint on the sides. It's not the end of the world. You can either leave it, you can lightly sand it, or what I do is at the very end, just get a baby wipe and run that around the edges, and it cleans it right up. And it just makes it look so much more finished. The other tip is to do super, super light coats. It's going to make it a lot more even finished instead of gloppy. So if you can just be patient and just do 2 to 3 light coats, I promise it's gonna look way better than one really thick coat. And you'll have to excuse my voice. I have been fighting a cold for over a week, and it's pretty brutal. I can't quite get rid of the congestion, but that's probably gonna be like that till next April, just in time for allergies. As far as the etching, as you can see, I'm not worrying about that at all, because you're gonna be able to see that through the paint. Unless you like really glopped your paint on, you're gonna be totally fine. And you're gonna still be able to see where to glue your numbers down or your letters down. So don't even worry about keeping that clean. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to finish this out. I'm going to push pause, finish this out, and then we'll probably just move on to the next pieces, let this dry, and then I'll go back and do another coat on this. Okay, I have my first coat done. It's drying. If you like to take your time, or you plan on like maybe taking breaks in between, you're gonna wanna wrap some plastic wrap around this or put it inside of a Ziploc bag. I just set mine off to the side just because I will get to it soon. But if it's gonna be a while and you're worried it might dry out, then definitely wrap that up. Okay, I'm not gonna show you this with every color, just with a couple, because the technique is always the same. So I sent you with 3 small wedges. Mine look like they've been used because I rinse mine and reuse, and 1 large. The large I'm using for the red color, just because there's gonna be more area with this bigger piece. I like to cut mine in half though and use smaller ones, because it's easier for the smaller pieces and it doesn't give so much spillover of that color. It's better for detail work. So you're going to dip your wedge into, I'm doing the white color obviously, dip the wedge in, and then on your box, do it off to the side so you don't dip your hand in it. I should move my camera. I'm going to just dip it up and down to get rid of the excess paint on there. And then get your tweezers for this small piece, but on this one, you're going to lightly dab up and down. And the same technique as with the foam brush, if you do super light bounces, you're not gonna get any paint on the sides. Your sides are gonna stay nice and dark. So with the really light colors like white, I plan on doing for sure 2 coats, minimum, maybe up to 3, unless you want the rustic look. If you're planning on like sanding it to give it more of a rustic look, I wouldn't do a lot of coats because then you're just sanding a lot more. With the tweezers, I'm just squeezing it and holding it down. Otherwise, it's gonna do what you just saw, which is suck up with the paint. And then since I did such light coats, this is dry already. So I'm going to just do my second coat and light bounce up and down. And open that wide. Okay, and then the last coat on this white color, and then we'll do, oh my goodness. I'm not able to get a very good grip on that. Okay, so then this white one is done. So you can either go and rinse it out or just set it to the side. And then let's do our red. So yes, because I wanted to give you a tip really quickly. So with the letters, especially the L, the S, the I, the T, they're going to look the same forwards and backwards, but since I used the funky font to give it like the Grinch feel, you need to paint the correct side. Otherwise, it's not going to be interchangeable. So I highly suggest, like what I did was make sure that this is dry. I laid all my letters out and then I just took them. So I made sure that they matched up and I took them and I placed them right side up. Worst case scenario, you paint the back of one of them and you just have to paint the other. The only time that's gonna be an issue is if you glue it before you realize, if you put glue on it, because then you're gonna have to try to sand that off. So I suggest laying it all out, paint, and then you know you've got it right. And then at the end, before you glue it together, make sure you lay it out again, because like these two S's, they're similar, but different sizes. So you wanna make sure that you get that correct. So let's just start with the red. Oh, I used the big wedge for that because of the circle. Same technique, dip, dab, can you see that? And then I just pinch the letter and light, dab up and down. If you don't like using the bigger wedge for these little letters, you can use the bigger wedge to paint the circle first, and then just get some scissors and cut it in half. That way you have a smaller wedge for these little letters. Okay, so I'm just going to repeat this technique with all of my colors, all my letters, all my pieces, and then we'll just come back when it's time to assemble. As far as this piece, mine is completely dry. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get my sandpaper and I'm gonna super light sand it just so it's a really smooth, because if you fill your board, when you paint it, it might raise the wood grain just a little bit. So when you do a really light sanding, that's gonna make it really smooth and your second coat is gonna go on a lot better. So do that 2, maybe 3 times, and then we'll come back when it's time to put it together. We're back for the finish. Make sure that you wash your hands. You don't want any paint transferring onto your clean pieces. As you can see, I laid out my pieces just to make sure, especially my letters, to make sure that everything has its place. And then I'm just going to move them off to the side. I see, this is why you need to move your paint out of the way, because I set wet paint down on accident. Do as I say, not as I do. So then I set everything off to the side in the way that I'm going to be gluing it down. as far as your letters, the ones to look out for are your eyes. Make sure they're facing the right way. And these two S's. I think, oh, and the T, nope, because this one's connected. So just these two S's, the smaller one goes on the top. So just make sure that you have that correct. With your super glue, like I always say, open it away from your project so that you don't spill. It doesn't like gather up pressure and spill. Okay, I'm gonna move this off to the side a little bit. I'm gonna glue my ring first. So a little goes a long way. I'm just gonna do a really thin line in the middle. I'm gonna stay as far away from the edge as I can, just so that it doesn't go everywhere. And then when I set it down, I'm gonna use my fingers to line it up on each edge and then press down. So, move my pieces out of the way. Can you see? I'm literally touching the tip to the wood and dragging it to try to prevent like just globs of super glue going everywhere. And then I'm going to lightly set it down so that it doesn't stick yet. And then once I feel it's all lined up, use my arms and my hands to hold it down. It dries so fast. If your wood is warped, you may need to hold it down a little bit more in those areas, but within 10 to 15 seconds max, it'll be done. Okay, let's do our Grinch hand next. I'm just going to glue like this. It might look like a lot, but it is like I'm almost just doing, like I'm squeezing on these bigger parts, and then on the thinner parts, I'm just doing whatever is left over on the lid, basically, or the tip. And then you are going to line it up with the edge before you press down. Make sure it's all lined up as much as you can. And then you're golden. Mine's probably already dry. Okay, let's do our letters next. So how I do these smaller pieces, excuse me, this darn cold. So on my box, and you want to make sure that you do not get your hands in it or accidentally put pieces in it. Hopefully your space is more organized than mine. I like to, oh, it's not even on camera. I need to tilt that. So I put some super glue there, and then I'm just going to hold the very top, and I'm just going to dip off the excess on the side, and then measure it up before pressing down. And then same thing. Dip, and then press down. It's usually good for a few letters before you need to refill. Then add a little more super glue. I don't have good lighting in this house at all, so I cannot see my screen until this is done. So I don't even know if I am showing up very well, or if my head's in the way, probably. Oh, that went over just a little bit. And then refill. The reason I dip over on the side is because if there's too much super glue on your letters, once you press them down, the super glue is just really gonna glob everywhere, and I'm trying to prevent that. So that is why I do the tap off. Don't worry, you won't run out of super glue. I use this for 2 other projects. Oh, also, when you're going in between projects, I don't think I've ever said this tip before. I leave the lid to my super glue off, because if I found that when I put my lid on, it super glues itself on, and so I can't reuse it. So I just leave the lid off, and I've never had a problem. Like this one, the last time I used it was over a week ago, and it's totally fine. You just have to make sure that you have it in a space where your kids aren't going to find it, and also that you're not going to accidentally tip it over. Because I just have it, like, I set it up so that it's leaning against something, and then I can reuse it over and over and over. Okay, let's see if I have enough super glue for my next pieces. I might need to pause and go grab some more. So with the Grinch hand, I'm going to, I'm gonna need to pause really quick. Okay, refilled. So I'm just going to, I'm very carefully waiting for it to come out so it doesn't start screaming out at me. When I get to the tips of the fingers, I'm not going to squeeze at all. I'm just going to put whatever is left over on the tip and just rub it on there. And then I'm going to hold it above till I'm happy with the placement, and then set it down. And then I'm going to lay these pieces out so I make sure that I'm happy with where they are. Right there. Okay, let's do this one first. And then his collar. Oops. Trying very hard not to super glue my hands down, which is pretty impossible. And then this one, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to put a little bit of super glue down. Dip, dip, and then that is great. Okay. And there we have our, let's see, turn that up. Okay, so this little circle, this side is the whiteboard, which I plan on using. You can also use the chalkboard side if you would like. I personally just don't like the look of when you write on a chalkboard and then you try to wipe it off and it still has that film on it. That drives me crazy. But I did put a hole in here, so if you did want to set it in and then switch it out, you can easily do that. But if you want it more permanent, you can always glue it in. But there you have your Grinch Christmas countdown.